Hey, hey, hey. It's time for a new script, babies. All right. Events are traumas. Interesting. I think I remember this one. Working out, it gets you to be healthier because it's a traumatic event. What if we approach this from the most viable and manageable traumatic events that initiate growth? What if we approach what? This life things from the most viable and manageable traumatic events that initiate growth? So here we are. Events are traumatic, and let us break it down. Why the fuck not? Okay. Uh, let's look between positive and negative events. What's the fucking difference? The difference is simple. Our perception. Correct. We all watched movies or have met people that kind of like have that go that put themselves in dramatic situations. For example, like I used here, working out gets you to be healthier because it's a traumatic event. So at the physical part, which is basically your body, when you're working out, your muscles are practically kind of like your muscle cells are destroying each themselves in order to kind of like grow. They're destroying the ones that were not capable, and after like applying a certain amount of pressure, whether it is through reps or whether it is through weight or whether it is through kind of like the speed, because there's a new a new working out philosophy where basically is like control the negatives. So ultimately, instead of like doing 100 low weight, basically like bicep curls, let's pick that bicep curls because everyone thinks about them, or making or putting bigger weight and making like 12 12 12 or 12 10 8 depending on your workout style. Effectively, you can do like one and like do like 30 seconds as you kind of like just add tension to it. And each one of these exercises kind of like creates a different form of strength or visibility when it comes to strength. But ultimately, all of them do one thing, which is basically traumatize your muscle cells so they go like, we're not enough, and they basically grow. So physically, naturally, that's what we do. Now, the reason I pointed at working out is because you can actually look at the exercise from the level of like the physical level, as in how cells actually activate. So just looking at working out styles now, there are people that just go carry weights, and that's enough for them to kind of like exercise. There are people that don't exercise at all, they don't put themselves in that situation. And naturally, when they're moving something in the house, they kind of like get sore for 3, 4 days, or kind of wobble instead of like walk properly, right? Like, you're paying for not having not having that activity in your life. Then you have people that run for like 20 kilometers every day. Like I have people that do CrossFit, which means every single time they go to the gym, they're kind of like, it feels like they're on something beyond what you are because they're always like and jumping and like pushing themselves. And so we all have seen how people either find themselves in a traumatic event, like you have to do something and like again like lifting. If you don't work out and you have to lift or you have to move something in the house that's heavy, you might have back pain for 3 days. Whilst if you go CrossFit all the fucking time, you would not feel moving anything in the house. It's just a normal day to you. And so we have these people that avoid basically events, any events, because all events are traumatic. But like some of us see going to the gym as, oh my God, why would I want to do that? I'm gonna be sweating. I'm gonna be, because we see it as a negative event, or we see it as a traumatic negative event. Whilst people that go to the gym, there are layers of people that see it as positive or not. Because a lot of people would exercise but would not go to the gym. They would do yoga, for example. So like for me, yoga is more intense than just like doing pull-ups and push-ups and all that shit that you do at the gym. Simply because, like, I perceive the action or the event of doing yoga or working out or running or walking differently. At some point in time, walking was a traumatic event for me. I would literally, it would be like 500 meters away, something 500 meters away, which is literally like 7 to 10 minutes of walking. What I would do is I would get in the car. Now, something that's basically 10 kilometers away, I would walk for 25 minutes to an hour. I wouldn't fucking care. It's for me, it would be like, oh, it's right there. And I would just like do it. So the perception changed on the event itself, which is basically walking or going to the gym. And the idea behind it is all events are traumatic because if we perceive an event as positive, it's going to change us. And if we perceive it as negative, it's going to change us. Now, the how the event itself, how we perceive it, is different than its effect on our perception. Because if we go through a traumatic incident in our life, an event that's traumatic in our life that we consider traumatic, and some shit is fucking horrible, man. I'm not belittling. I'm just like trying to browse my way through different forms of consideration. But if we look at events in our lives and that we perceive them as negative and positive, but our perception after those events are altered. Perception or perceived our perspectives, sorry, after those events are altered. Because ultimately, and if you're, uh, let's just imagine like you've graduated, right? You've been studying for 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is, and you finally graduate. The world would look different. Well, that event allowed for things to change, which means you have to encompass the new environment, look at it differently. And a lot of stuff kind of like variables become new and the old variables kind of become redundant. That's why we kind of go into nostalgia a lot because those are things that we're used to. But like when an event happened, that's and graduating is a positive event, right? But effectively, like how are you going to handle the new shit is the new perspective that you're working with. You have to, the perspective has changed and you have to adjust how you perceive things in order for you to be able to like grow in that term. But the same, a negative event, for example, a trauma, can I use a negative event as a car accident, for example, or a death in the family? The same shit happens, right? They're felt differently, they're explored differently, but both of them kind of induce something that's uncomfortable. The positive one is I'm looking forward to this event happening, whilst the negative one, I would rather that event not happen. But both of them have created new environments, have given us a completely different perspective on life, and have altered our perception to how things are and how they operate and how they function. So I think trauma is inherent when it comes to change. Going back to like how we process working out, our cells don't really go like I'm growing. They literally split apart. They get killed. They die and they find new ways in order to bind with each other in order to be stronger for the next time you go work out. And I feel that's literally how everything operates. One second. My bad. Uh, so the idea behind it is trauma is the property of change. And it's one of those, like when somebody says selfish, you think that he's a negative, that's a negative connotation, but it doesn't really have to. It's just basically a certain conditioning that made us look at it in a negative way. Uh, I think neutralizing the terms that we use help us in processing things much better, or at least much easier, because everything around us really and genuinely could be looked at from like different ways. And there's either like naturally something that we do that we look at something a certain kind of way, or it's an effort for us to take the other side. or to look at from another perspective. And I shouldn't have said other side because other side, when somebody says other side, you automatically think if I'm here, then the other thing is here. But another side could be like here or here or here or here, right? Me personally, I feel like I have a tendency to think like left, right, instead of kind of like, everything is possible. Every angle is possible. Every like sense of direction, every dimension is a possibility. Effectively, instead of kind of creating that like, if I'm here, then this is a no-no, or if I'm in a positive place, then everything that's not positive is negative, or if I'm in a negative place, everything that's not negative is positive. Instead of having these kinds of conversations, or at the very least allocating the weight in a more two-dimensional way, I feel neutralizing something like this, like when we're discussing trauma right now, because like any event is actually a traumatic one, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a negative one. It just means it's going to influence us and it's going to change us. And some events have a mild effect on us, and some events have a huge effect on us. Maybe that's the level of how traumatic the event is, but it doesn't necessarily it doesn't necessarily have to be taken in a way that's destructive. Although I feel this is a very touchy subject, but still, like neutralizing words instead of like, because I think most words are personalized and they all refer to how we feel towards them, but they're just words. They're just their job is to express the truth, not our judgment of the truth. Amazing. That turned out to be a good video. Love you guys.